Commander Veeler stood in the War Council chamber, his forearms crossed behind his back. The holographic display showed a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Terran 5, a human colony world, just another target in the great expansion of the Velen Empire. This should take 3 days, General Kor said, his voice filled with confidence. Maybe 4 if they hide in their structures. Veeler nodded. He had fought in 47 invasions. 47 worlds now belonged to the Empire. The humans would be number 48. He studied the data scrolling across his view screen. Humans were weak creatures, no natural armor, no claws or fangs. They could not breathe toxic atmospheres or survive in extreme cold. They broke easily. Their weapons are primitive. The intelligence officer reported kinetic projectiles, mostly some basic energy shields. Their ships are slow, their soldiers tire quickly. How many defenders? Veeler asked. Approximately 50,000, mostly colonial militia, some regular military units. Veeler did the calculations in his head. His force numbered 200,000. 4-1 advantage with superior technology. This would indeed be quick. The fleet entered orbit around Terran 5 3 days later. Veeler watched from the bridge of his flagship as the bombardment began. Plasma cannons turned military installations into molten craters. The humans fired back, their defensive batteries managing to damage 2 frigates before being destroyed. Adequate resistance, Veeler thought. Not impressive. Ground forces ready. Commander, his second officer reported. Begin the landing. The drop ships fell through the atmosphere like metal rain. Veeler went with the first wave. He wanted to see the human surrender personally. The main human city sprawled below them, mostly intact. The plan was simple: secure the city, capture the government center, accept surrender. 3 days, maybe 4. The drop ships landed in the central plaza. Feller's boots touched human soil. The city was quiet. Too quiet. Buildings stood empty there. Windows dark. No civilians ran screaming. No soldiers fired desperately from rooftops. Sir, the city appears abandoned, Lieutenant H reported. Spread out, search every structure. They are hiding. The Velen soldiers moved through the streets in formation. Veeler felt the first hint of unease in his chest. Where were the humans? His thermal scanners showed no life signs. Had they evacuated? That seemed unlikely. There had not been enough time. The explosion came without warning. The building, to his left, collapsed. Tons of concrete and steel crashing down on 2 squads of his soldiers. Bilar threw himself behind a vehicle as debris rained from the sky. Screams filled his communicator. He counted 12 dead in seconds. Contact North Sector, someone shouted through the radio. Gunfire erupted across the city, but Veeler could not see the enemy. His soldiers fired at shadows, at windows, at nothing. Another explosion rocked the street behind him. A mine knows something else. The humans had rigged an entire vehicle with explosives. They are in the sewers, H screamed. They are coming from underground. Bilar spun around. From maintenance holes and drainage tunnels. Humans poured out like insects, but these were not panicked civilians or disorganized militia. They moved with precision. They knew exactly where to strike. Every human carried weapons, but they also carried tools: cutting torches, demo charges, hacking equipment. A human soldier appeared from A doorway. Veeler raised his plasma rifle, but the human was faster. The bullet hit Veeler's shoulder plate. Cracking it, the human ducked back inside before Veeler could return fire. More humans appeared on rooftops, in alleys behind barricades that had not been there moments before. Pull back to the plaza, Veeler ordered. His forces retreated, dragging their wounded. Humans did not chase them. They simply vanished again, melting back into the city like ghosts. Veeler reached the plaza and took stock. In less than an hour, he had lost 500 soldiers. 500. This was supposed to be easy, sir. We are receiving a transmission, his communication officer said. Put it through. A human face appeared on his screen, male, young, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore the uniform of the Colonial Defense Force with captain's insignia. I am Captain Minyu. Welcome to Terran 5, Commander. I hope you enjoyed your reception. Felter's anger flared. You have delayed the inevitable. Surrender now, and I will show mercy. Minyu smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You misunderstand our situation, Commander. We are not trying to win. We are making sure you lose. The transmission ended. Veeler stared at the blank screen, confused by the humans' words. What did that mean? The Valen had superior numbers, superior weapons, superior everything. How could they lose? He found out over the next 16 hours. The humans had turned their entire city into a weapon. Streets had been undermined with tunnels. Buildings were rigged with explosives. The water system had been poisoned, not lethally, but enough to make his soldiers sick. The power grid still functioned, but now it served the humans, giving them light and communications while his forces stumbled in darkness. Every time Veeler sent troops into a district, the humans would appear, strike and vanish. They used the terrain like they had lived their whole lives. Of course they had. This was their home. They knew every alley, every building, every hiding spot. His soldiers were invaders in a hostile maze. On the second day, the humans destroyed the main water treatment plant, but they did it in a specific way. The explosion created a flood that swept through 3 streets where Veeler's forces had set up camp. 200 more soldiers lost, not dead but injured and unable to fight. They are not fighting to kill us, Lieutenant H observed. They are fighting to hurt us, to slow us down. Feller understood. Then the humans were buying time, but for what? Reinforcements, evacuation, he ordered. Reconnaissance drones to sweep the planet. The answer came back quickly and filled him with cold dread. Every human settlement on Terran 5 had been prepared the same way. Every city, every town, every village was a trap. The humans had known the Velton were coming. They had known for months, while Veeler's intelligence said the humans were unprepared. The humans had been building a planet-sized death trap. On the third day, a massive explosion destroyed the landing field where his drop ships were parked. The humans had spent 3 days tunneling underneath it, placing explosives, waiting for the perfect moment. 23 dropships destroyed. His ability to reinforce or evacuate was cut in half. How did they know where we would land? Has asked. They did not. No, Feller said quietly. They rigged every possible landing site. The 4th day brought a message from Captain Minyu. Again, you have lost 4,000 soldiers. Commander, your landing capability is damaged. Your supply lines are vulnerable. I suggest you leave while You still can. Veeler wanted to rage to threaten to promise destruction, but the human's face showed no fear, only cold calculation, only patience and something else, determination. A willingness to do whatever was necessary. That night, Veeler gave the order he never thought he would give: retreat. Abandon the ground assault, return to orbit. His forces withdrew under cover of darkness, leaving behind their dead and much of their equipment. The humans did not pursue, they simply let him go. From orbit, Veeler looked down at Terran. 5, such a small world, such a weak species, but they had beaten him, not through superior firepower, not through advanced technology. They had beaten him through preparation, cunning, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. His casualties were 40%, 40% in a battle that should have cost him 5% at most. And he had achieved nothing, taken no territory, captured no prisoners, won no victory, set course for the next target system. He ordered quietly, but he wondered if this was how humans fought. When defending a minor colony, how would they fight when defending something they truly valued? How would they fight when protecting their home world? For the first time in his long military career, Velter felt something he had never felt before on a battlefield: uncertainty. And beneath that, just the smallest seed of fear. The space station hung in the darkness like a metal flower. Station Halo 9, the humans called it a supply depot at the edge of human territory. Veeler studied it through his viewing screen, calculating angles and weaknesses. After the disaster at Terran 5, he needed a clean victory, something to restore his reputation. A simple siege commander, General Kor, had told him: surround it, cut off supply lines. They will surrender in days. The station has limited food and water. 2,000 humans cannot survive long without resupply. Feller had agreed this would be different from the ground assault. In space, the humans could not use terrain against him. No tunnels, no hidden explosives, just a metal structure floating in the void, running out of resources. His fleet took position around the station, 12 warships in a perfect blockade formation. Nothing could get in or out. The humans did not even try to run. They simply continued their daily operations as if nothing had changed. B'Elar opened a communication channel. A human face appeared on his screen. Female, middle-aged, with short black hair and tired eyes. She wore a commander's uniform. I am Commander Hune of Station Halo 9. I assume you are here to demand our surrender. Yes, Feller said. You have no supplies coming, no reinforcements. Surrender now and no one will be harmed. Huen's expression did not change. Thank you for the offer. We declined. The screen went dark. Felter was not surprised. Humans seemed to enjoy refusing the obvious choice. Fine. Let them be stubborn. In 3 days, when they were hungry and thirsty, they would change their minds. 3 days passed. The humans did not surrender. B'Elar monitored their power usage, looking for signs of desperation. The station's energy consumption remained steady. How were they managing their resources so efficiently? 1 week into the siege, Veeler noticed something strange. The station's waste disposal vents were operating on a different schedule. His science officer studied the data. Sir, they appear to be processing waste more thoroughly than before, recycling everything. How much more time does that buy them? Perhaps another week, maybe 2. Bilar settled. Into wait, patience was a virtue in siege warfare, but on the 8th day, one of his frigates took damage, a small explosion on its port side, nothing critical but unexpected. What happened? Wheeler demanded. Unknown, sir. We are investigating. 2 days later, another ship reported damage, a malfunctioning weapons port, then a third ship lost a sensor array. Wheeler reviewed the incidents carefully. They seemed like random failures, but he had learned not to trust coincidence around humans. Scan for debris fields near our ships, he ordered. The results stunned him. Small objects floated near each damaged vessel, pieces of mining equipment or processing components. The humans had launched them from the station's cargo bays using compressed air, no engines, no heat signatures, just metal floating in space, looking like common debris, until they drifted close enough to Vultan ships. They are using their mining tools as weapons, his tactical officer reported almost admiringly. Wheeler ordered his ships to pull back to increase the distance from the station. The attack stopped, but now his blockade had gaps, not large enough for a ship to escape, but large enough to make him nervous. In the 3rd week, his soldiers started reporting strange transmissions. Music, the humans called it, but it was not pleasant sounds. It was harsh, loud, with screaming voices and pounding rhythms. The humans broadcasted constantly on every frequency. They are trying to annoy us into leaving, Lieutenant H said, but that was not all. Between the music, there were other sound stories, horror stories. His translator reported tales of monsters and death and things that hunted in darkness. The humans were conducting psychological warfare. Some of his soldiers complained about nightmares. Others grew irritable. Wheeler ordered the communications filtered, but the damage was done. The humans had gotten into his crew's heads. In the 4th week, Wheeler noticed 2 of his surveillance drones were not responding. They still transmitted data, but they did not obey commands. He ordered a diagnostic. The report made him close his eyes in frustration. Sir, the humans have hacked the drones. They reprogrammed them. How? Our encryption is military grade. They had time, sir. 4 weeks of studying our signals. They found a weakness. The 2 drones now serve the humans. Feller had to destroy them himself, but it raised a terrible question. What else had the humans hacked? He ordered a full security review of every system in the fleet. Meanwhile, the station should have run out of supplies. Wheeler could not understand how they were still functioning. His science officer finally discovered the answer, and it was both simple and infuriating. They are growing food, sir, inside the station. They converted their hydroponics bays from decorative plants to edible crops. They are also breeding protein insects. In 4 weeks, they must have started the moment we arrived. Humans have a remarkable ability to alter their plans mid-crisis. On the 35th day, something changed. The station launched 6 small pods. Wheeler ships tracked them, ready to shoot them down, but they were not escape pods. They were filled with biologic material, algae from the station's air recycling system. The pods drifted into his formation. When they got close, they burst open. Algae spread across his ship's hulls. It seemed harmless until the reports started coming in. The algae was consuming the ship's paint, the specialized coating that protected against radiation. Not dangerous immediately, but over time it would force his ships to return to base for maintenance. They weaponized their air supply, H said quietly. B'Elar had to admire it. The humans were using everything, every system, every resource, every scrap of material became a tool of resistance. They were not trying to win through firepower. They were trying to make the siege too expensive to maintain. In the fifth week, an engineer named Sman contacted him. Feller did not know how the human had gotten his personal communication code, but the message was simple. You are wasting time, Commander. We can do this for months, can you? It was a good question. His fleet was running low on patience and morale. His ships needed maintenance, his crew needed rest, and for what? One supply station. Military value did not match the cost. But Velar could not admit defeat again. He ordered a direct assault. Marine teams would board the station and take it by force. The humans had proven clever, but they could not fight trained soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. The assault teams breached the stations. Hull in 3 locations. Bethar monitored their progress. They moved through corridors, encountering no resistance. Too easy, far too easy, sir. We are detecting movement in the ventilation system. Of course, the humans were using the station's own structure against them again. His Marines found themselves fighting in narrow passages, blind corners, zero gravity sections where the humans had shut off artificial gravity. Every advantage the Valen had in open combat became useless in these conditions. The humans also released the protein insects they had been breeding, thousands of them swarming through the corridors. Not dangerous, but distracting, disgusting. They got into armor joints. Block sensors caused panic. B'Elar's Marines withdrew after 6 hours, having taken heavy casualties for minimal gain. The humans had repelled 3 different boarding attempts. How? They were not soldiers. The intelligence report said the station's crew was mostly engineers and technicians. The answer came from a captured human technician who laughed when questioned. We are engineers. We know every centimeter of this station, every wire, every pipe, every access hatch. You are invaders who cannot even read our door labels. Who do you think has the advantage? In the 6th week, the relief fleet arrived. Felter's sensors picked them up at the edge of the system. 12 human warships moving fast. He realized with sudden cold clarity that the humans had never been trying to survive. They had been trying to delay. Every clever trick, every improvised weapon, every psychological attack had been about buying time. The humans knew rescue was coming. They just needed to hold out long enough. Commander Hyen's face appeared on his screen one last time. You should leave now, Commander. Our reinforcements will be here in 6 hours. If you stay, this becomes a fair fight. Do you want a fair fight? Velar looked at his exhausted crew, his damaged ships, his depleted resources. 6 weeks of siege for nothing. The humans had tied up a significant portion of his fleet, cost him resources and reputation, and lost nothing themselves. Retreat, he ordered quietly. As his fleet withdrew, he thought about what he had witnessed. The humans had not just endured, they had adapted. In 6 weeks, they had learned his tactics, hacked his technology, and turned their own station into a living weapon. Everything changed when fighting humans. The rules, the expectations, the outcomes they learned. That was the terrifying part. They learned from every Mistake every attack, every attempt. And what they learned they used said. Course for Vlan's space, he needed to make. A report, the humans were not what they Empire believed them to be, they were. Not weak, they were not simple, they were perhaps the most dangerous species he had ever encountered because they never stopped adapting, never stopped learning, never stopped finding new ways to survive. The jungle world of Kur-7 was beautiful. In a wild, untamed way, Felthar watched from his command ship as the morning mist rose through the canopy below, down. There 8,000 human colonists lived in scattered farming communities, mostly families, mostly civilians. General Kor's orders had been clear and brutal. Total elimination. The High Command has decided that mercy has failed. We have tried negotiation. We have tried siege. Now we try fear. Destroy Kur-7 completely, make it a message to other human colonies. Wheeler had argued against it. He was a soldier, not a murderer. But the order came from the highest levels. The Empire was frustrated, too. Failed campaigns had made the Valen look weak. They wanted a victory no matter the cost. This is wrong, Lieutenant H said quietly. I know, Bilar replied, but we follow orders. The bombardment began. At dawn, not precise military strikes. Wide area destruction. The farming communities disappeared in clouds of fire and smoke. Felthar watched and felt something inside him grow cold and sick. This was not war, this was slaughter. When the ground forces landed, they found very few survivors, a handful of humans fleeing through the jungle. Some were captured. Most were killed. Wheeler's report stated 8,217 human casualties, almost all civilians. 341 were children. Among the survivors was a woman named Nari. She had been at a distant settlement when the attack came. By the time she returned, her entire family was dead. Her home was ash. Her world was gone. Felthar's soldiers captured her trying to bury bodies. They held her for 2 days, then released her with the other survivors. 43 humans total out of 8,000. Let them go. Kor had ordered, let them tell others what happens to colonies that resist. The survivors vanished into the jungle. Feller's forces established a base in the ruins of the largest farming community. 12,000 soldiers, enough to hold the planet permanently. The High Command was pleased. Finally a clean victory. Finally the humans had learned their place. 3 months passed, quiet months. The jungle slowly reclaimed the burned areas. Feller's troops settled into routine patrols and guard duty. The humans were gone, fled to other worlds, or dead in the wilderness. The planet belonged to the Valen Empire now. Then the soldiers started disappearing. First, it was a patrol that did not return. 6 soldiers sent to check a perimeter sensor. They never came back. Search teams found nothing. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just empty jungle. Animal attack, H suggested perhaps. Belter said, but he did not believe it. 3 days later, another patrol vanished. 4 soldiers this time, then 2 supply runners, then a guard from the northern watchtower. Wheeler ordered everyone to move in larger groups. No one went anywhere alone. It did not help. A group of 10 soldiers disappeared from a checkpoint in the middle of the day. The checkpoint was found empty, weapons still in their racks, equipment untouched, as if the soldiers had simply evaporated. Then they found the first body. It was hanging from a tree at the edge of the base, a Valen sergeant dead. for at least 2 days, but it was the way he had been killed that made Veeler's blood run cold. The sergeant had been killed with his own weapon. The weapon had then been used to pin him to the tree and carved into his chest plate. In crude Valen script were 2 words, "We." Remember, more bodies appeared, each one killed differently, each one displayed in a way designed to cause maximum fear. One was found in the water supply, poisoning it for days before discovery. Another appeared in the command center, itself placed in the commander's chair. While everyone slept, how had the humans gotten past all the guards, all the sensors? Veeler realized the humans had not left, they had simply become invisible. They were out there in the jungle watching, waiting, hunting. But these were not soldiers. The human military unit on Kara 7 had been small. A sergeant named Dahayan and his squad of 12, they had all survived the initial bombardment by being on patrol in the deep jungle. 13 trained soldiers and 43 angry civilians, 56 humans total, terrorizing an army of 12,000. The killings became more elaborate, more cruel. Feller's soldiers started refusing patrol duty. They stayed inside the base, behind walls and defenses, but that did not save them. The humans found ways in, through drainage pipes, through ventilation shafts, through gaps in the perimeter that should not have existed. One morning, Veeler woke to find 12 bodies arranged in the central plaza. Each one killed differently, each one posed in a specific way. It took him an hour to understand the message. The bodies were arranged to point toward the mass grave where the human colonists were buried. "They are torturing us," H whispered. "They are making us afraid to sleep." Veeler tried everything: motion sensors, automated defenses, guard animals. Nothing worked. The humans were like ghosts. They struck without warning and vanished without trace. More terrifying was their patience. Sometimes days would pass with no attacks. His soldiers would begin to relax. Then someone would scream in the night and they would find another body. Psychological effect was devastating. Feller's soldiers stopped trusting each other. They slept with weapons loaded. They saw threats in every shadow. Some deserted, fleeing into the jungle, preferring to take their chances alone rather than stay in the base. Those deserters were never seen again. 2 months after the disappearances began, received a transmission, audio only. Human voice, male speaking, accented but clear. "Valen Commander, I am Sergeant Dion. You killed my friends. You killed people I had sworn to protect. You killed children who had never held a weapon. Did you think we would forgive that? Did you think we would run away?" Feller tried to trace the signal, but it bounced through too many relays. The human continued, "We are not soldiers anymore, Commander. We are something else now. We are the price you pay for what you did. Every day you stay here, more of your people will die. Not quickly, not cleanly. We will make them suffer as our people suffered. This is murder," Belthar said into the transmission. "This is not war." "No," Dayan agreed. "War is what happened before. This is justice. We are giving your soldiers the same chance you gave our civilians." None. The transmission ended. Balar sat in silence, understanding the depth of his mistake. The Empire had thought destroying the colony would break human morale. Instead, it had created something far worse. It had created humans with nothing left to lose, humans with only one purpose: Remaining revenge, the attacks intensified. No longer did the humans just kill, they tortured, they left victims alive but broken as warnings. They used fear as a weapon more effectively than any plasma cannon. Wheeler's force began to collapse, not from casualties, though those mounted steadily, but from sheer terror. When his casualties reached 3,000 dead and 800 deserted, Wheeler made a decision. He requested evacuation from Keras 7. The High Command denied it. This was a victory world. Abandoning it would be admitting defeat, so Wheeler disobeyed. He ordered the evacuation anyway. His remaining soldiers were broken, traumatized, useless. Better to face court-martial than watch them die one by one to an enemy that never slept and never forgave. The evacuation took 3 days. The humans did not interfere. They watched from the jungle as the Valen fled. On the last day, as Wheeler prepared to board the final transport, a figure emerged from the tree in Sergeant Dayan, alone, unarmed. He walked to within 50 m of the landing zone and stopped. He was thin, scarred, with eyes that held no light, no joy, no humanity left, just cold purpose. Behind him, 55 other figures emerged from the jungle, soldiers and civilians, men, women, some barely more than teenagers, all carrying improvised weapons, all staring at Wheeler with the same empty eyes. Day raised his hand. In it he held something small. He threw it. The object landed at Wheeler's feet. Military badge, the badge of Wheeler's second in command, who had led the initial assault on the colonies. We gave him to Nari. Dehan called across the distance. She is a school teacher. Was a school teacher before you killed her students. She took 3 days to finish. With him, she wanted us to give you a message. Velter looked down. Carved into the badge in perfect Veltan script were words that would haunt him forever. We remember, we will always remember. Tell your people, tell them what happens when you hurt us. Tell them we do not need weapons or armies, we just need a reason. Feller boarded the transport without responding. As they lifted off, he looked down at the jungle one last time. 56 humans stood in the clearing, watching him leave. They had defeated an army of 12,000, not through superior firepower, through sheer focused hate, through patience and cruelty, and an absolute refusal to let go of their pain. The Valen had taught the humans that mercy was weakness. The humans had taught the Vultan that vengeance was terrifying. Later, Velter would write in his report that Keras 7 should be marked as forbidden territory, not because the Valen could not take it, but because the cost of holding it was too high. The humans would never stop, never forgive, never forget. He had learned something terrible on that jungle world. Humans were not fierce. When they were winning, they were fierce. When they had nothing left to lose, the asteroid field was a perfect place for an ambush. Feller's dreadnought, the Eternal Dawn, hung silently among the floating rocks, powered down to minimal systems. His fleet had received intelligence about a human supply convoy passing through this sector. 3 frigates and an escort of fighters, easy targets. After Keras 7, Wheeler needed clean military victory, something to prove the Valen could still win battles through traditional means. No more colonies, no more civilian, just ship-to-ship combat where superior technology and numbers would decide the outcome. Convoy approaching. His sensor officer reported 3 frigates as Expected 12 fighters they are. Maintaining standard formation, Velar. Study the tactical display, the human. Convoy was small, vulnerable, his. Dreadnought alone outgunned all three. Frigates combined. This would take minutes. Power up all systems, target. The lead frigate prepared a fire. Eternal Dawn came alive, lights. Activated, weapons charged, the human. Convoy must have detected them immediately because they began taking evasive action, but they were too slow. Too late. Fire, Velar commanded. The dreadnoughts' main plasma cannon discharged with a sound like tearing metal. The beam lanced through space toward the lead human frigate, but the ship twisted at the last second and the shot missed, striking an asteroid instead. The rock exploded into thousands of fragments. How did they dodge that? Ask demanded. The targeting system is never wrong. Before anyone could answer, the 12 human fighters broke formation and accelerated toward the dreadnought. Directly toward it, almost laughed. Did they think 12 small fighters could damage a ship this size? Point defense systems eliminate the fighters. The dreadnoughts' automated weapons activated, tracking the incoming craft. The fighters weave between asteroids, moving with suicidal speed. One was destroyed, then another, but the rest kept coming, not even trying to fire. Their weapons just coming closer. Sir, lead fighter is on collision course. The tactical officer warned. He is not breaking off. Velar understood a second. Too late. The fighter was not attacking. It was sacrificing itself. The small craft slammed into the dreadnought's main cannon just as it was cycling for another shot. The explosion was small by space battle standards, but it struck at exactly the right moment. The cannon's charging mechanism shattered. The pilot's name was Taeyong. Velar would learn that later. He was 23 years old. He had flown his fighter into a dreadnought's main weapon because that was what the situation required. No hesitation, no fear, just cold calculation and execution. Main cannon offline, someone reported. Backup systems engaging. 4.22 seconds. That was how long the backup systems needed to activate. In normal combat it was nothing, but the three human frigates had been waiting for exactly this moment. They fired simultaneously, all weapons targeting the damaged cannon port. The concentrated fire tore through the dreadnought's armor, not deep, not critical, but enough to cause secondary explosions, enough to create chaos. Backup systems failed to activate. The main cannon was completely destroyed. Return fire, Velar ordered. His ship had dozens of other weapons. The dreadnought began firing with secondary plasma batteries, missile pods, kinetic cannons. The humans scattered using the asteroid field for cover. The remaining fighters swarmed around the dreadnought like insects, too small and fast for the large ship's weapons to track. Effectively, one frigate took a direct hit and broke in half, but the other two kept fighting. They moved in a coordinated dance, appearing from behind asteroids, firing, then hiding again. Before the dreadnought could respond, who was commanding them? Velar checked his intelligence data. The lead frigate was commanded by someone named Commander Ji-1. Target that ship. Velar pointed at Ji-1's frigate on the display. All weapons. The dreadnought unleashed everything at the human commander's ship, but the frigate spun away and most of the shots missed. One missile struck home, tearing through the frigate's side. The ship vented atmosphere and debris. It should have been dead, but it kept moving, kept fighting. Impossible, H. whispered, that hit should have destroyed them. Then something began happening that Wheeler had never seen before. The human fighters were not trying to escape, they were attaching themselves to his dreadnought's hull like parasites. What were they doing, sir? The fighters are using boarding pods. They are cutting through the outer hull. How many? 7 fighters remaining. All 7 have attached. 7 fighters. Meant perhaps 14 human soldiers. 14. Against his crew of 3,000, it was absurd. But Wheeler had learned to fear human absurdity. Seal all corridors. Vent the outer sections. Do not let them penetrate deeper into the ship. But the humans were already inside. They moved through the dreadnought like they knew exactly where to go. They ignored the crew quarters, ignored the cargo bays. They went straight for critical systems, life support, power distribution, the bridge access corridors. Wheeler sent security teams to intercept them. The first team reported contact, then screamed, then went silent. The second team lasted longer but still fell. These 14 humans were fighting like creatures possessed. They used the ship's own corridors as weapons, setting traps, creating ambushes. How are they winning? Asked, demanded. They are 14 against thousands, but Wheeler understood. The humans were not trying to win. They were trying to cause maximum damage before they died, and they were doing it. Every moment his crew spent fighting borders was a moment they could not focus on the frigates outside. Commander Juan's damaged frigate was still fighting, still moving. Wheeler could see on his sensors that the ship was held together by emergency force fields and prayers. By every logical measure, it should have exploded, but the humans kept it flying through sheer stubborn will. An explosion rocked the dreadnought. The humans had reached a power junction and destroyed it. Lights flickered. Systems failed. The ship's mighty engines stuttered. Status report: we have lost auxiliary power. Shields at 60%. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. 7 of the 14 humans were dead, but the surviving 7 had penetrated to the ship's inner core. They were 5 corridors from the bridge. Wheeler could hear weapons fire through the walls, could hear his soldiers screaming. The final human assault on the bridge came without warning. The blast door exploded inward, and 4 humans stumbled through the smoke. They were injured, all of them. One was missing an arm, another left bloody footprints, but they all held weapons, and their eyes held that terrible human determination. At the front was Commander Juan. She had left her dying ship and led the boarding party herself. Blood covered half her uniform from at least 7 visible wounds. She should not have been standing, should not have been conscious, but she raised her weapon and pointed it at Wheeler. Surrender, she said in perfect, or we blow the reactor. It was a bluff. It had to be. 4 injured humans could not reach the reactor, could not bypass its security, could not. An explosion from below proved it was not a bluff. The 3 other humans had reached the reactor. They had rigged explosives. If Juan gave the signal, everyone on the ship would die. Ballard looked into Juan's eyes, looked at her wounds, looked at the way she swayed, but did not fall. She was dying, she knew it. But she would take his entire ship with her if necessary. I surrender, Wheeler said quietly. Juan smiled. It was a terrible smile, the smile of someone who had won something impossible. A smart choice, Commander. The battle was over. A Valken dreadnought, the pride of the fleet, had been captured by 3 frigates and 12 fighters. The final count was devastating. 52 humans had died. Taeyang and his fighter, 23 crew from the destroyed frigate, 22 more from boarding actions, but they had achieved the impossible while captured before human reinforcements arrived. Veeler spoke with Jiwon. She was in the medical bay, finally receiving treatment for her injuries. The doctor said she should not have survived the boarding action, should not have been able to walk, let alone fight. How? Veeler asked. How did you keep going with those injuries? Jiwon looked at him with tired eyes. Because stopping was not an option, but you could not win. The mathematics made it impossible. We did not think we would win, Jiwon said quietly. We just refused to lose. There is a difference. Veeler thought about that, thought about humans fighting with broken bodies, thought about a pilot flying into a dreadnought's cannon, thought about a commander boarding an enemy ship while bleeding from 7 wounds. Your species is insane, he said finally. Yes, Jiwon agreed, but we are also still here and you are a prisoner, so perhaps insanity works. 3 days later, human ships arrived and took custody of the captured dreadnought. Balar and his crew were returned to Valen space in a prisoner exchange. He spent the journey thinking about what he had witnessed. Humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They did not calculate odds, did not accept logical defeat. They simply kept fighting until they won or died, and somehow that impossibly stubborn refusal to quit made them more dangerous than any weapon. When he returned home, Veeler was demoted. His career was over. He had lost a dreadnought to 3 frigates. Shame was enormous. 20 years had passed since the failed invasion, 20 years since Veeler had last seen combat. He was old now, his forearms moving slowly, his once sharp eyes dimmed by time. The Voltan Empire had made peace with humanity 5 years after his demotion, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Every battle against humans cost more than it gained. Balar stood at the war memorial on the Valen home world, a massive wall carved with the names of fallen soldiers. Thousands of names, too many names. He came here often to remember, to mourn, to think about the mistakes he had made. The memorial was quiet today. Most Valen preferred to forget the war. It had not been glorious. It had not been heroic. It had been humiliating. The great Valen Empire, conqueror of 47 worlds, had been fought to a standstill by one species, Commander Velter. The voice came from behind him. Velter turned slowly. A human stood there. Female, perhaps 50 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair. She wore diplomatic clothing, and her badge identified her as Ambassador Jian of the Human Coalition. I am no longer Commander, Bethar said, just an old soldier visiting ghosts. May I join you? Balar gestured to the empty space beside him. The human stepped up to the memorial wall, studying the names carved into the stone. So many lost, she said quietly. Yes, the war cost us dearly in soldiers, in pride, in the illusion that we were invincible. Veeler paused. Why are you here? Ambassador, I come here every year, Jian said, to remember. Remember what? Your victory? No. Yan's expression was sad too. Remember that wars harm everyone, even the winners. They stood in silence for a Moment, then Veeler asked the question that had haunted him for 2 decades. Why did you not destroy us when you defeated our fleets, when you pushed us back to our own territory? You had the power to invade our worlds, to do to us what we tried to do to you. Why did you stop? Jian looked at him with eyes that held old pain. Because that is not who we are. We fight like demons. When you threaten us, we will do terrible things to protect our homes and our people, but we do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for revenge. We fight to survive, and once survival is assured, we stop. I do not understand. After what we did to your colonies, to your civilians, you would have been justified in retribution. Justified perhaps, but not right. Jian touched the memorial wall gently. These soldiers who died, they were following orders just like you. Most of them probably did not want war. They had families, dreams, lives they wanted to live. Killing more people would not bring back those we lost. It would just create more pain, more memorials, more ghosts. Veeler felt something heavy in his chest. Something he had not felt in years. Shame, yes, but also something else. Relief, relief that the humans had been merciful when they could have been cruel. Were you in the war? He asked. Yes, I was on Karis 7, Belter's breath caught. Kiss 7, the massacre, the jungle world where his soldiers had killed 8,000 civilians. Then you have every reason to hate me, to hate all Valen. I did hate you, Jian said simply. For years I hated so much it felt like poison in my blood. I was 12 years old when your ships came. I watched my parents die in the bombardment, watched my school burn, watched my entire world turn to ash. You are Nari's daughter, Veeler whispered, finally understanding. The school teacher who had taken 3 days to kill his second in command, the woman who had sent him that terrible message, carved into a badge. Yes, my mother became something dark on that world, something driven by rage and pain. She survived for 7 more years after you left, then took her own life. The hate had consumed her completely. There was nothing left of the woman she had been. I am sorry, Veeler said. The words felt inadequate, tiny against the weight of what had been done. I know. I have read your reports, your recommendations that the High Command stop targeting civilians, your warnings about human tenacity. You tried to change course. They did not listen until it was too late. Still, I followed the orders. I let it happen. Yes, you did. Jian did not soften the truth, and you have to live with that, just as I have to live with what I saw, what I lost, what my mother became. They stood together, an old soldier and a child survivor, connected by shared trauma across an ancient war. Can I ask you something? Young voice interrupted. They turned. Young Valton stood there, a cadet by his uniform, barely old enough to serve. He looked nervous but determined. What is your question, cadet? Belter asked. I am Torvon. I study military history. I have read about the human war. He looked at Jian. What are humans like, truly like? Belter expected Jian to give a diplomatic answer. Instead, she smiled gently at the young cadet. We are fragile, she said. We break easily. We tire quickly. We have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. We are afraid of many things. The dark, death, being alone, but because we know we are fragile, we learn to be brave. Because we know we are afraid, we learn to face our fears. We fight not because we are strong, but because we refuse to Be weak, Torvald absorbed this then. Looked at Velar. Commander, in your experience, what should we learn from the war, Velar? Thought carefully before answering. This was important. The next generation needed to understand to never repeat the mistakes. Humans are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered, but not for the reasons you might think. They are dangerous because they become more dangerous the closer they come to losing, when you push them to the edge, when you take everything from them, when logic says they should surrender. That is when they become truly terrifying. He looked at the memorial wall then. Back at the young cadet. Humans are individually fragile but collectively indestructible. They are born afraid, so they learn to be brave. They know they are weak, so they learn to be strong. They understand they will die, so they fight to make their lives mean something. That is what makes them formidable, not strength, not technology, but determination. Hope, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Torvald nodded slowly, trying to understand. Should we fear them? He asked. Yes, Belthor said honestly, but you should also respect them, learn from them. They taught me the true meaning of fear, but they also taught me the true meaning of hope. Jayan looked at Velar with surprise and something like gratitude. Can I show you something? She asked. She pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image appeared. Two groups of children playing together in a park. Human children and Valan children, laughing, running, unaware of the history between their peoples. This is from a colony world where both our species live together. Now, Jayan explained, the children do not care about the war, do not carry our pain. They just see each other as friends. Belthor watched the children play. Something in his chest loosened. Some weight he had carried for 20 years felt lighter. Perhaps that is the real victory, he said quietly. Not who won the war, but who learned from it. Yes, Jean agreed. We learned that peace is better than victory, that understanding is better than dominance, that we are stronger together than we could ever be apart. Torvald looked between them. These two old warriors from opposite sides. Will there ever be another war? He asked. I hope not, Jayan said, but if there is, I hope both our peoples remember what we learned. That war costs everyone, that hatred poisons everyone, that mercy is not weakness but strength. Belthor nodded. I learned fear from humans, real fear, not just tactical concern. I learned what happens when you push a species that refuses to quit. But I also learned hope, hope that even the worst mistakes can be forgiven, that even the deepest wounds can heal, that peace, however difficult, is always possible. He looked at Jayan. Thank you for not becoming your mother. Thank you for choosing hope over hate. Jayan's eyes were wet. Thank you for remembering, for carrying the weight of what happened, for trying to teach the next generation. They stood together at the memorial as the sun set, casting long shadows across the carved names. An old soldier, a survivor, and a young cadet who represented the future. The war was over, the hatred was fading, life continued. Velar thought about all the battles he had fought, all the lessons he had learned. Humans had taught him fear, yes, but they had also taught him something more important. They had taught him that even the fiercest enemies could become friends, that even the deepest darkness could give way to light. As they left the memorial together, Velar felt something he had not felt in 20 years. Not peace exactly, not forgiveness perhaps, but something Close, understanding, acceptance, hope. The war had ended, but its lessons would continue, and perhaps those lessons, hard as they had been to learn, would prevent future wars, would save future lives, would make the suffering mean something. That Velter thought was the best any old soldier could hope for, not glory, not victory, but wisdom, and the chance to pass that wisdom to those who came after. The future, like the Children and Giants hologram, would be different, better, built not on conquest but on understanding, not on fear but on hope, and that was a victory worth more than any battle.